In our last episode, I may have oversold what the Cartmel master plan actually was. The Cartmel master plan wasn't some grand document in some folder that would have been pulled out if Doctor Who hadn't been cancelled. The Cartmel master plan was a handful of loose ideas brainstormed by a couple of creative types that was maybe sort of not really considered at one point, and later became mythologized among fan circles before becoming a critical bit of backstory for the Virgin New Adventures. Out of the three people usually credited, Andrew Cartmel himself had the least amount of input into these specific ideas. His priorities were not on creating mysterious background characters like the Other, or inventing weird Time Lord technologies like the Looms. His creative priorities were on the Seventh Doctor's characterization, though since he never actually wrote a script for the show, that work was largely done in design meetings and in collaborations with other scripts. With the rise of the Virgin New Adventures, Cartmel was given an opportunity to show the world what his Seventh Doctor truly was, directly from him, not through another writer, not under the approval of a disgruntled producer, not interpreted by an actor, but uncut, on-tap, pure Doctor Who from the guy who once famously said that what he wanted to do with the show was overthrow the government. Oh, but also Peter Darrell Evans says you gotta have this silver cat walking around in a few scenes because suddenly this is part of a trilogy it never has to be a part of. This is Cat's Cradle, Warhead by Andrew Cartmel. Chapter 1, Scene 1, the very first thing that happens in this book. A young boy named Brody is upset about the deforestation going on near where he lives. The forest along the mountains has been stripped clean by the Butler Institute. In protest, Brody tries to break one of the Institute's security cameras by throwing stones at it, but he doesn't have the reach. Then the Doctor appears. Seems he's been doing some business in the area. The Doctor builds the boy a slingshot. "Why aren't you trying to stop me?" said the boy. "Sometimes it's necessary to fight back." "You aren't like other grown-ups, are you?" "No." And that's how Cartmel decides to introduce his Doctor, assisting a child in his first act of vandalism and protest against those with all the power. It's not in service to the Doctor. He didn't need this camera destroyed for his own plans. He just saw someone disempowered and gave them the means to fight back. That right there should tell you a lot about the political landscape we're walking into. And if you've picked up any details about me and my political leanings, it's probably no surprise that I find this very, very exciting. Of course, like most science fiction, Doctor Who has engaged with political allegory since its inception. Sidney Newman was a huge fan of science fiction, and according to him, sci-fi was a marvelous way, and a safe way I might add, of saying nasty things about your own society. Of course, there's having a political subtext, and then there's being explicit about it. Invasion of the Dinosaurs involves a sort of environmental terrorism, but really it's about dinosaurs walking around London and the Doctor showing off his really stupid-looking car. This book is on the opposite side of that spectrum. It, too, is involved with people taking drastic measures against pollution, only this time it's the good guys, the Doctor and Ace, taking those drastic measures to save a near-future Earth on the brink of destruction. Resources are dwindling, there's mass deforestation, pollution is so bad that cancer and disease is widespread. One character is described as having better health than most because she's only had to get lung transplants. Of course, this means there's a serious market for healthy body parts, which means there's a serious black market for healthy body parts. Corporations are hiring mercenaries to non-lethally snipe people, then pose as ambulance drivers so that they can kidnap their victims and bring them in for processing. Or, grab an immigrant. Nobody will miss those. But that's only a temporary solution to a lasting problem. Matthew O'Hara is the project director for the Butler Institution, and he has a plan. Let's just take all the rich important people, put their brains into a computer, and hide that computer in a cave. The human race dies out, sure, but all the privileged people get to hang out in the Matrix sipping digital martinis. First off, back in my video of Time Worm Exodus, I brought up the idea that the Doctor tends to steer clear of human-caused issues, which is to say things that don't involve the presence of aliens or supernatural forces, mostly because then you get the Doctor involved in real-life human tragedies. The Doctor isn't going to stop human wars, he isn't going to stop our hate, he's not going to punch out Jimmy Savile even when they're both in the same room. But here, things are different. The problems presented here are very much Earth's own doing. We polluted our environments, we hurt our home. We don't need the help of the Ice Warriors or the meddling monk to destroy Earth. We'll do it ourselves, damn it. And yet, the Doctor is here to fix it. It's not even that far into the future. No exact year is given in the book, but it's somewhere around 2008, 2009, roughly 15 years after the book's publication. So it's not like this is some distant future of which the readers will never be a part of. The people who did this are the people who are the target demographic for this book back in 1992. And yes, the Doctor is here to fix it. Cartmel's Seventh Doctor gets involved with the human race in a way no past Doctor ever really did. It would be nice to say that he does it out of an extreme affection for the human race, but this version of the Doctor isn't really the affectionate kind. The Doctor in this book is cold, detached, and unforgiving. The first chunk of this book is structured like so. We get some stuff involving the Butler Institute, building up this near-future setting. We're then introduced to a character, someone minor, seemingly insignificant to the greater plot. We follow them for a while, learning their history. Cartmel is fantastic at delivering backstories, by the way. And then these characters run into the Doctor. The Doctor is doing something in relation to a larger goal, but the character is left in the dark. The character and the Doctor talk for a bit, the Doctor gets them to do a seemingly minor thing that will prove important later, and then the Doctor leaves. One of these characters is a woman named Maria, a cleaning lady working on the Butler Institute building. We learn about her reckless youth, the murder of her lover, her move from California to New York, her struggle to find work, her health problems. We really get a strong picture of her. Then she finds the Doctor hacking away at a computer. And you know what she does? She helps him. She gives him information, and when he sets off the security system, she covers for him, taking the blame for herself. The Doctor gets away with it, and Maria finds herself reinvigorated. She feels young again. So what happens next? I have to travel to certain places and meet certain people. Are you coming back? I'm far from finished here, said the Doctor. He turned and looked back down the corridor. Two tiny lights shone in the darkness, moving. The cat came trotting out of the shadows and joined them. The Doctor looked at Maria. Thank you for your help. He picked the cat up and turned away, moving down the corridor. Maria stood and watched him. When she opened her mouth, she intended only to speak the words, but they came out as a shout. Take me with you! The Doctor stopped. He turned and looked at her. The cat wiggled out of his arms and dropped to the carpet. It walked around the corner. No, said the Doctor. Why not? But Maria moved down the corridor, closer to the Doctor. Because of 51, said the Doctor. What? Maria's voice was shaking. She could hear it herself. The 51st floor of this building. You know what goes on there. No. Yes. You've known for years, and you've let it happen. The Doctor turned away from her and walked around the corner, after the cat. Ooh, Doctor, why you gotta be like that? Damn, that is an icicle straight to the heart. Cartmel's Doctor has little forgiveness for those who don't at least try and fix things. Don't at least try to fight the powers that be to make the world a better place. Oh, and soon after this, Maria has a seizure and dies. In fact, everyone the Doctor meets like this dies shortly after he leaves. The Doctor is sort of an angel of death in this piece, entering lives without warning, casting judgment, and leaving them to their final fate. The Carmell Doctor isn't more affectionate to humans, he's treating them like he does all the other alien races he comes across. Something to deal with, a problem to fix. Andrew Cartmel was born in 1958. We've already talked a lot about him in the introduction video from Crossing the Wilderness, covering his writing workshop days to his run as the script editor of the final 3 seasons of Doctor Who. One of his goals while working on the show was bringing in more thematic depth and meaning. If nothing else, every Doctor Who story should mean something. It's sci-fi after all. It should be a marvelous way of saying nasty things about our own society. I do feel that resonance with the real world, and even some polemical force, make for a much more interesting script. It means the script is about something and has some meaning and depth. Perhaps the best way to illustrate this is by citing a script that I had inherited which had no such qualities. Time and the Ronnie. There were many things I didn't like about this particular script, but ultimately, I think its failure to speak to anything in the real world was its greatest weakness. This was a story which wasn't about anything, and frustratingly, it was Sylvester McCoy's debut. While Carmell never wrote any scripts for the show himself, he was very involved in injecting moments to push certain ideas, or, if you're less forgiving, push certain agendas. For example, in the script for Battlefield, which is credited to Ben Aronovich, Carmell put in a little speech for the Doctor about the horrors of nuclear war.
All over the world, fools are poised, ready to let death fly. Machines of death, Morgaine, are screaming from above. A blight brighter than the sun. Not a war between armies, nor a war between nations, but just death, death gone mad. The child looks up into the sky, his eyes turn to cinders. No more tears, only ashes. Is this honor? Is this war? Are these the weapons we would use?
A bit cheesy, yes, but it's about something, and that's what Cartmel wanted, to make Doctor Who about something again. After Doctor Who ended, Carmell became the script editor for the 5th series of Casualty, a hospital drama which, just going by the episode descriptions, is apparently the most depressing shit ever. A mother is trampled to death by the mayhem of a football match riot. The team battle to save Miles, a schoolboy who tried to hang himself at school after being bullied. A doting grandfather climbs a ladder to retrieve a frisbee from the roof for a young boy. He topples backwards, crushing the boy who dies. Hey, remember when the Doctor fought a man made out of candy? Good times. Casualty proved to be Cartmell's last television project for the rest of the 90s. During this time, he was also submitting comic stories to Judge Dredd magazine and Doctor Who magazine. Cartmel finished 2 comic stories for Doctor Who magazine before this book's publication. First, we have Fellow Travelers, where an alien possesses a racist grandma and turns her into Duke Nukem from Captain Planet. It's not very good. It's trying to be scary, but it just comes off as goofy. Cartmel's next comic story, The Good Soldier, is a bit better. It involves American soldiers in the 1950s getting abducted by original model Cybermen, though the art in these comics tend to be really hit or miss. Interesting stuff, but these comics neither felt reflective of the attitudes of Cartmel's run on Doctor Who, nor indicative of what was to come in Cat's Cradle Warhead. Warhead started off very cyberpunk, rather William Gibson. There's another writer called David Scour who writes what they call splatterpunk. Both those ideas are terrific, but they come from the short story tradition. If you read them, you realize that they're actually chunks, written separately. Recently, I've been looking at novels which drive you all the way through. With a lot of suspense, with books that pull you through. Writers like Thomas Harris, who writes gripping suspense novels. Suspense always holds the reader's attention. I'm not sure everyone would agree in calling this book cyberpunk. Some might argue it doesn't fit the definition. Oh, it fits the punk part. This book is about angry young people rising against authority and tearing it down. It's about the breakdown in social order. But outside of the villain's main plan, there isn't much in the way of cyber here. Characters don't have cybernetics, people are still using desktop computers, there is some mild hologram technology, it's just upscale television for the rich. If it's cyberpunk, it's cyber light punk heavy, if that matters to you. So the Doctor needs to craft a weapon, like he did the slingshot. And the weapon of choice? Youthful rebellion. He'll weaponize the kids. The one element in play we haven't touched upon yet is the rise of psychic abilities among humans, or psi powers as they call it. which doesn't really get explained that much here, but will become a reoccurring plot point throughout the series. The Doctor tracks down Vincent Wheaton, a teenage boy who can amplify the emotions of someone close to him, manifesting those emotions as bad things. Oftentimes just explosions, but sometimes he can turn a bicycle into a monster. Used to be a Muji bicycle. Now it looks like a sculpture made by Modigliani. You know, one of those metal skeleton statues, said the girl. The zinc fusion plated diamond frame of the bicycle had been stretched, distorted, and reshaped into a parody of a human being, about 2 meters tall. It had long tubular legs and stalks of metal that passed for arms and a stubby torso. The side pull caliper brakes looked as though they had been melted and resculpted into delicate 3-toed feet. The dull metal of the ATV-type pedals had fused into a blunt dagger jut of genitals. But the all-terrain tires were the worst. They were split open and welded onto the ends of the arms to make huge grasping hands. The sprung spokes stretched out like long, sharp fingers. The tips of the spokes were still wet and red. At least, I think I mean Modigliani, said the girl. Now, Vincent's just a conduit to other people's emotions, and for the effect the Doctor's looking for will require someone with a lot of righteous emotion. So enter Justine, an angry young eco-terrorist who blends environmental activism with certain Wiccan beliefs in magic, which Ace doesn't care for one bit. He's using the things you believe in. Demons, witches, all that black magic crap. He knows it's crap, but he's using it to manipulate you. The girl looked thoughtful. Demons, witches, black magic crap, she said. There was a wistful note in her voice, a hint of sadness. Well, it certainly is one way of describing reality. Ace began to feel a little guilty. It was cruel to attack someone's beliefs. Sometimes they were all a person had. Just words to cover the truth, said Justine. You're saying he chose those words because he knows there's a necessary illusion for me. That's right, said Ace. That's the way a sorcerer behaves, said Justine. There's some extended conversations about belief, about how fragile beliefs can be, which at first seems fitting for these characters, but not for this story. Yes, Justine has some very strong unconventional beliefs in what is widely considered the supernatural, while Ace is a very vocal, no-nonsense woman who has little patience for this kind of thing. But as things progress, you kind of realize they're both pretty much the same person. They're both headstrong punks from a working-class background. They're both efficient with explosives, and they both kick ass. The only real difference in personality are their beliefs, and that's beliefs, plural. It's easy to confuse this confrontation as belief versus non-belief, and that's what this would be in reality. But this isn't reality, this is Doctor Who, where a box is bigger on the inside and a screwdriver can work from a distance. The Doctor and Ace fought the gods of Ragnarok. They solved the riddles of a haunted house. They faced werewolves and sea vampires. Ace witnessed the Doctor destroy a planet. A woman from the past who traveled through time via an alchemical potion told Ace not to trust the Doctor. Also, he might be Merlin from King Arthur's court. By all accounts, Ace shouldn't have this hard of a time entertaining the idea that the Doctor may be more mystical than he claims. She believes the Doctor because she trusts the Doctor, but is that trust rightfully placed? You have the necessary illusions as well, but in your case they involve science. You don't believe in magic, but you believe in machines. So when he explained himself to you, he used your terms of reference. That's the way a sorcerer behaves. Ace yawned. Why don't you just try to get some sleep, she said. It's been a long night. Let me tell you something about yourself, said Justine, speaking quietly from the bed behind Ace. When you were a kid, your favorite reading was science fiction. Maybe books, maybe comics, spaceships, time travel, that sort of thing. Standing by the window, Ace felt a cold chill along her spine and in the pit of her stomach. You work from a paradigm of technology, so when he encountered you, he offered a description of reality that worked with your terms of reference. Let me guess. He said he was some kind of eccentric scientist? A mad inventor? Ace said nothing. She didn't shake her head. but she didn't dare move at all. Maybe if she didn't move, Justine would stop speaking, but Justine didn't stop. Did he say he was an android, a wise and powerful robot, an alien? Now she stopped, sitting there on the bed and staring at Ace's face. Then she laughed with genuine pleasure. He's from another planet! That's what you believe? Shut up, said Ace. You don't believe in magic, but you believe he's from another planet, and you're his girl companion. Shut up! Ace was turning away from the window. And that thing in the cellar, the door, the gateway to other worlds, how does he account for that? A spaceship? A time machine? Shut up! Shouted Ace, but it came out as a howl. She lunged across the bedroom and lashed out at Justine. The girl made no attempt to fight back. This is one of those things where you totally get what the story is trying to do, and makes total sense for the characters involved, and would totally work in some other franchise, but it doesn't quite work here because, unless this book was the very first Doctor Who thing you ever experienced, you're going to have a certain context that discredits the idea of the Doctor being a wizard. The show ran for 26 seasons. 26 seasons to explore the Doctor, his character, Gallifrey, the Time Lords, and all the various rules of this universe. The Doctor is an alien and not a wizard. Ace is right and Justine is wrong. Oh, you can totally suggest the Doctor's more than he seems, but you kind of have to slot those ideas into areas that haven't been televised, between seasons like the Time War and the War Doctor, or before the first episode, things like the Hybrid, or, yes, the Cartmel Master Plan. The idea, of course, is that you can't really trust the Doctor. You really shouldn't, anyway. You should always be questioning his motives, because someday he might just wipe his hands of you and move on to the next pretty young thing he can emotionally torture. Speaking of Ace, the middle section of this book is all about showing us how much of a badass she is. She goes on a mission, by herself, without the involvement of the Doctor, or the still kind of broken TARDIS, into turbulent Turkey, where she negotiates the assistance of Kurdish rebels to assist her in stealing a mysterious barrel kept somewhere in a heavily guarded island fort. She handles herself like a professional, finds clever ways to keep herself out of trouble, and at one point threatens to shoot a guy's dick off. Ace has clearly gained a lot of skill and confidence from her time with the Doctor. Keep that in mind for the next book. Let's see, what else? Oh, the Doctor owns a house! Like an actual piece of land with a house. Yeah, it's in Kent, the house on Allen Road. Actually, it first showed up in Fellow Travelers, but I'll admit I didn't catch on to that until much later. But yeah, anytime the Doctor is staying on Earth for an extended period of time, he hangs out at his summer home. It's just a fun idea, the Doctor getting involved with real estate, and it's a nice change of setting for scenes that would normally take place inside the TARDIS. The Doctor's house is loosely based on the house where I grew up in Kent, because I'm familiar with it. I'm very fond of that English haunted house in a flourishing green garden image. I think I called the house Smithwood Manor in a comic strip, but giving it a name killed it, so now it's just the house on Allen Road. The local kids keep renaming it Alien Road, as if they're aware of something strange going on. It's a romanticized version of my family's house. But it's great because you've got these weird outbuildings and strange artifacts laying around. Whereas the TARDIS is a weird environment, and I think keeping a weird character like the Doctor in a weird environment for too long is like putting a painting in too ornate a frame. I like having this place where the Doctor can keep returning to. I find the idea really appealing. I like the idea of the Doctor having these little bases he can return to. I like the occasional change of scenery from the TARDIS. It's one of those ideas from the wilderness years that I think could translate to modern Doctor Who pretty successfully. Come on, Chibnall, give us the house on Allen Road. So the Doctor goes through with his plan, but something goes wrong. Vincent and Justine have fallen in love, meaning Justine doesn't have that righteous anger whenever she's around her psychic boyfriend, meaning he can't use that anger to blow up the Butler Institute's brain computers. You know, a bomb would have been a lot less complicated, guys. They do destroy it by another means, and all the corporations who have signed up for this scheme are like, oh, we can't have digital immortality? Well, I guess we'll have to clean up the pollution and save the world instead. But that's not the point. The point is that the Doctor utterly failed to predict this. The Doctor, who has a strong reputation as the chess master, the manipulator, time's champion. His plan failed because he failed to understand human behaviors like attraction and affection and love. At least this incarnation of the Doctor doesn't. I hope this exact scenario doesn't bite him in the ass the second time. Which brings us back to Cartmel's Doctor. Let's go ahead and make a list of all the Doctor's traits as shown in this book. 1. He'll get involved with local affairs without question, including purely human affairs now. 2. He is friends to those who fight authority and those who do wrong. If you're in a position to fight but don't, he has no respect for you. 3. He plays the long game and prefers to keep his moves subtle and under the radar. 4. He will tell you exactly what you need to hear to get you on his side, even if it's a lie. 5. He is not human and can still be surprised by human behavior. Now, throughout these videos, I've been critical of each writer's abilities to accurately portray the Seventh Doctor's character as seen on the show, which has ranged from really good to adequate to wasn't even trying to Doctor had amnesia. Using that same baseline, Andrew Cartmel's Doctor would not be getting top grades. The Seventh Doctor was just never this cold. Sure, he kept his cards close to his chest, and he could get dead serious when he needed to, but this is the same Doctor who taunted the Daleks with references to rice pudding, the same Doctor who defeated 3 angry gods with a cheesy stage magician act. But you know what? I'm okay with this here, because these are exceptional circumstances. The script editor of the 7th Doctor era finally getting to show off what he wanted to do with the Doctor all along. A lot of people see it as a detriment. A lot of people don't like this book because it doesn't feel very Doctor Who, which is a silly thing to say for a franchise that's so malleable. But they're right in that it doesn't feel like a direct continuation of the show as we left it in 1989. But truth be told, I would rather have Carmell take this opportunity to archive his ideas for the character in this fashion than force him to abide to some overruling sense of continuity. This is Andrew Cartmel's Doctor. No John Nathan Turner, no Sylvester McCoy, no hired screenwriter, just Cartmel and you. Cat's Cradle Time's Crucible and Cat's Cradle Warhead are vastly different in subject matter and tone, but both offer the same thing. A look at what Doctor Who might have been if certain ideas weren't left on the cutting room floor. These ideas are not necessarily better than the ones the show ended up going with. I know plenty of people can't stand the idea of looms, but it is certainly nice to actually see these ideas in actual stories. To not have them just be mysteries teased in convention Q&As. They have a certain historical value in the fandom. But how well does Warhead hold up as a book? Pretty damn well. As a near-future techno-thriller, it's striking. There's a great attention to detail with the larger world-building bits like the way the weathers can give you cancer, to the small things like desktop icons on the office computers. He also knows how to time reveals. You get a character that you sympathize with because he tried to save library books from looters, but then details about this character start to trickle in that completely recontextualizes these actions, and you're forced to feel differently, and it's oh so perfectly paced. And as far as a dystopia goes, yeah, like every piece of media that takes place in the near future, it gets a lot of details wrong, but compared to a lot of cyberpunk media, Warhead still feels remarkably relevant. And a lot of the stuff here is creepily similar to our present world. Corporations fund and run the political landscape, efficient medical care is pretty much exclusive to the upper class, wealth inequality is insane, there's no peace in the Middle East, Turkey is in turmoil, and countries use drones in warfare. Replace cancer-causing smog with global warming, and Nostradamus might as well have been the book's ghostwriter. A book this politically motivated should not be so on the nose 24 years later. It's depressing, but in a way that kind of clears your head. It's the kind of book that makes you look at the world, realize we haven't fixed a goddamn thing, probably passed the event horizon years ago, and we're now the final generation that's going to live to see 70. It's bleak in the way Time Worm Revolution was hopeful. But if you feel helpless, if you feel like nothing you do will matter, remember this. You can always build a slingshot and shoot out some security cameras. Next time, the Doctor travels to the land of unicorns, centaurs, and trolls. So I guess Justine was right after all? Huh.